Okay, what's next for our confirmation students? This sermon is for the four of you, but I'm inviting everyone else to listen in. What's next after you profess your faith, after you join a church? What's next? What's next is to aspire to live a life of significance. From this point on, what's next is to have a vision to live a significant life. Not just an average life, not just a regular life, not just an ordinary life, but a life of significance that other people can recognize as being significant. And Tabitha shows us how to do it. Tabitha is not a very well-known biblical character. There's only 7 verses about Tabitha in the scriptures, and she's never quoted. She never says a word that we know of, but what we know is that her life was significant. Tabitha lives in the seaside community of Joppa, and the first thing we know about her is that she is a disciple. This word, disciple, is applied to her. This is the word that's used to describe the 12, Peter, James, John, Thomas, and the others. But when it's applied to them, it's used in its masculine form. This word in the feminine form is applied to Tabitha. Her Greek name is Dorcas. Those are the same names. Tabitha is Aramaic. That's the language that Jesus actually spoke. So if Jesus were to give her a biblical name as you received a biblical name today, he would have said Tabitha. Tabitha is devoted to good works and acts of charity. When you are a disciple of Jesus, something happens inside of you. A change occurs and you become a different person. You no longer live just for yourself. You live with compassion for other people as well. As a disciple, you follow in the footsteps of Jesus, and what Jesus did was go about doing good wherever he could. And when you're a disciple, that's what you do. When you're a disciple, it doesn't just mean that you believe certain things. It doesn't just mean that you know certain things. It means that you spend your life doing good works and acts of charity every day. For Tabitha, what she did specifically was make clothes for widows. A widow in first century Middle East is a woman whose husband is dead and she has no other means of support. She does not have other family who can provide for her. She is exceptionally vulnerable. She's not employable. She doesn't have marketable skills. There's no social safety net. A widow, in this case, is just surviving, just barely. She is poor and must depend upon alms and acts of charity just to get by. This is how she eats. Other people give her food. This is how she gets her clothes. Other people give her clothes. As a disciple, Tabitha takes it upon herself to make clothes for widows. She makes tunics and robes. Perhaps Tabitha is a widow herself, but she seems to have means to develop resources to give to others. So she's not poor, and we know that she owns her own house. But what Tabitha does is rise above all the limitations that are placed on her. Her world is dominated by men in which women are assumed to take a subservient role. Jesus, however, is radical in his time. Jesus does not subscribe to cultural stereotypes or labels or categories or designations or generalizations. Women are welcome into the inner circle of disciples, according to Jesus. And then Jesus releases men and women into the world to lead and to serve other people. Men and women, go get them. Go out there and serve. Go out there and lead. Women too. Tabitha rises above her social status, her gender role, orientation, educational level, tax bracket, family background, test scores, political affiliation, to do what Jesus calls her to do. And then she died. She became ill and she died. And her body was washed and prepared for burial, and there was a great outpouring of grief. People feel the loss. They give her accolades and loudly mourn her death. And it turns out that the clothes she was making for the widows weren't just your average clothes. They weren't beggars can't be choosers kind of clothes. Turns out they were beautiful clothes, fashionable clothes, clothes that poor people weren't accustomed to. And after Tabitha died, all the widows brought the clothes, the tunics, and the robes, and they showed everybody, look what Tabitha made for me. She wasn't just a seamstress. She didn't just give them clothes. She gave them respect, and she gave them dignity, and she gave them a new sense of self, and she gave them power. Because she believed in them. Because this is what Jesus had taught her to do. This is what it means to be a disciple. You don't just go around doing nice things because you get a little Benny when you do a nice thing. No, she was interested in the people. The clothes meant something. The clothes changed them. Yeah, they had to have them, but she gave them more than the clothes. Today we thank God for the women like Tabitha in our own lives. Women who gave something to us more than clothes, more than food. Somebody believed in you. There's been a woman in your life who believed in you. And because she did, you are who you are today. It may have been your mother. It may have been a teacher. It may have been someone else. You know Tabitha. I can't help but think of my mom on a day like today. She's been gone for, 12 or 13 years now. My mom was 5 feet tall and never weighed more than 100 pounds. My mom was in a family of all boys, and it was not easy for her, but there was no question who was the most powerful person in the room whenever my mom was there. And when she was mad, she had this unique thing. When she was mad at you, she wouldn't just say your name and then be mad at you. She would run through all the boys in the family all at one time, like she was mad at all of them at the same time, or that you're just like all of them. And she was reminding us who the Caesar was in our family. My mom was married when she was 19. She was then a military wife, and my father was away for 4 years. And when he came back, They were still young, and like baby boomers, had children right away, and didn't have much, and college was never an option. She was just one of those quiet people who believed in her kids. And if she had an opportunity, she'd believe in her kids' friends. And if she had an opportunity, she'd believe in people she didn't know and could help anyway. It was a significant life. After Tabitha died, in an act of desperation, these widows and everybody sent two men to go to Peter. Peter at this time had risen to be the leader of the early church. Remember last week we talked about him being restored after he had failed Jesus 3 times. I don't know him, I don't know him, I don't know him. Jesus appears to him again and basically said, come on, Peter, let's go. It's time to move on. Feed my sheep, tend my lambs. Here he is. He's risen to leadership in the church. The people in Joppa go after him. Peter, you got to come. Peter comes right away. He's in the room with all the widows. He sees the clothes. The body is there. He sends everybody outside, and he kneels. It's humility, and he prays. And he says these words, Tabitha, get up. And she takes his hand and she sits up. I don't know how to explain that. I don't really know how to understand that. Is this a healing? Could be a healing. Is this a resurrection? Could be a resurrection. But all I know about that today is this, that when you live a significant life, death does not stop it. When you live a significant life, death is not the limit. That life goes on. That the significance goes on. Tabitha shows us how to live a life of significance. A life of significance is not about our wealth, our influence, our education, our possession, or the number of friends or likes we have. Our significance is found first and foremost in being a disciple of Jesus Christ. Today we witness 4 people making the most important decision of their life. A life of significance is not about accomplishment or reward. Significance is about you and me going about doing good works and acts of charity, even if you're 5 feet tall and don't weigh 100 pounds. A life of significance is not about you and me fitting in the world comfortably. Significance is about you and me not accepting the limitations of the world. People will not always rejoice in what you're doing or the decisions you're making if you're doing things and deciding things because Jesus is your Lord. Do not accept any limitations. A life of significance is not based on our net worth, but the worth that we give to others. A life of significance is not measured by our estate. It is measured by our legacy. And Tabitha shows us what people remember after we're gone. They remember the good that passes from our life into theirs. So thank you, Tabitha. Thank you for reminding us to be thankful for those who have been like a mother to us. And thank you for showing us and our new members what a life of significance looks like. Amen.